First, let me say what a pleasure it is to introduce my friend, Ambassador Emily Haber, who is getting Moment's Human Rights Award in recognition of Germany's efforts to mitigate the refugee crisis and strengthen its bonds with the Jewish community. Ambassador Haber is really friendly. In fact, I actually met her for the first time in her living room in Berlin. How's that for friendly? I was in Germany as a fellow at the American Academy in Berlin and investigating the issue of illegal immigration to Europe. I wanted to talk to a German official about their views on this critical challenge, and everyone said I needed to speak to Emily, who was then Germany's state secretary responsible for overseeing security and migration at the height of the refugee crisis in Europe. Her busy schedule only made possible a meeting at her home, and she was kind enough to invite me over for coffee and a great analysis. It is a measure of her high standing in Germany that she was given this most sensitive portfolio at this most sensitive time. I was so happy when she was appointed the German ambassador to the United States, and have had a chance to draw on her wisdom here as well. We in America are beneficiaries of Ambassador Haber's deep diplomatic experience. She's held various positions with the German embassy in Russia and the former Soviet Union, including head of the political department there. At the Foreign Office in Berlin, she served as head of the OSCE division and as Deputy Director General for the Western Balkans. Somewhere along the way, I don't know where, she picked up a PhD in history as well. And she's a member of the Board of Trustees of the International Journalists Program. Speaking of journalism, let me just say a few words about our own industry, or my own industry these days, which is really facing the greatest crisis that I've seen in my 40-year career. And that crisis is contributing to our political crisis. The days when we had 3 national networks that everybody watched and a few mainstream newspapers, and every state had one sort of reliable big city newspaper that operated on the same editorial rules. Oh, those days are really long gone. Today we have a few mainstream media outlets. We now have mainstream media outlets that are also becoming highly partisan politically. And lastly, we have now just a welter of websites emerging and individuals offering up news on Facebook and Twitter with virtually no standards whatsoever. As a result, basically, we're really losing our cognitive immunity as a country. Country has physical immunity, it also has cognitive immunity, ability to sort out fact from fiction. But that is really hard these days when you have such an open system operating on so many different standards and increasingly on no standards at all. This is an urgent crisis because what it's doing is attacking the 2 pillars of democracy, truth and trust. Without truth, we have no agreed pathway forward. And without trust, we can't walk down that pathway together. And certainly all of this was amplified by a president who deliberately undermined truth and trust. But it's being undermined going forward because what's happened as a result of the last 4 years, both Trump's own behavior and changes in my industry, is that the stigma against lying has been lost. People lie freely now. They lie without stigma. They lie without hesitation. And worse, lying and enraging people has actually become an industry. It's actually become a business. In fact, it's become such a big business. I fear in a few years, it'll be part of our GDP report. You know, car sales were down this quarter, but lying grew 20% year over year. I'm really afraid of that. This is a national emergency. We need to be establishing norms and standards going forward. I hope we can do that under a new presidency that restores the stigma to lying, that calls out lying and calls out businesses, social networks that use their platform to deliberately enrage and divide us in order to keep us addicted to them. This is code red. This is a national emergency. There will be no democracy in the long term without it. There is no democracy without truth or trust. I'm glad there are organs out there like Moment that still abide by the old rules, the old standards, not only abide by them, but celebrate them and elevate them. God bless you, Moment, for that. Thank you for giving this award to Emily and highlighting the importance of human rights as well. It's got to be part of our great national pushback to restore truth and restore the stigma to untruth. Thanks so much for having me.
Nadine Epstein, Tom Friedman, fellow honorees and honored guests of the Merment 45th Anniversary Gala. And thank you for your kind introduction, Tom. It's truly a great honor to be part of Merment Magazine's 2020 Gala among such luminaries as Madeleine Albright and Michel Martin. Being named as the 2020 recipient of the Merment Human Rights Award is deeply meaningful for me, especially in the light of last year's recipient, the late, great Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was fortunate enough to meet Justice Ginsburg during the past year and was thus able to experience her unique power of spirit. It's an incredible privilege to follow in her footsteps as the next recipient of this award. Of course, the circumstances of last year's Moment Gala and this year's Gala could not be more different. We can't meet in person this year due to the pandemic, but at least we can come together virtually. And I would like to thank everyone who contributed to making this possible. About 2 weeks ago, Germany commemorated the 9th of November, 1938. That night, in 1938, countless synagogues were burnt and desecrated in Germany. Thousands of businesses and shops and homes were vandalized. It was a night of killing and destruction, a night of pogroms as we refer to it today, and it was a turning point. We all know what came after. As a German and a historian, I know that remembering is not always easy, and yet it's utterly important. Following his 10-year self-imposed silence after liberation from Auschwitz, Elie Wiesel became one of the most powerful and charismatic voices against forgetting. He kept speaking about the unspoken truths, the painful truth, about the suppression of memories. He would go on to found Merment Magazine in 1975 and a decade later to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Remembrance requires education. No one knew this better than Elie Wiesel. He was a master educator and spared no efforts to meet with students to share his story. Educating the younger generation is key and needs to be center stage in our remembrance efforts. A week ago, I joined hands with the Holocaust Memorial Museum to bring survivors and young students together. Normally, I host a luncheon for survivors and students at my residence to mark this dark 9th of November, 1938. This year, we turned to a virtual format, and it was profoundly moving to hear the stories of the survivors and to see the deep interest of the students. Nothing, no textbook, no movie is as powerful as the personal story of a survivor. Much has been done in education, remembrance, and reconciliation. And yet, for all our vigilance, it's clear we must do more. There is still a wide knowledge gap about the Holocaust that we need to fill. There are Jews in Germany and elsewhere who do not feel safe or respected. Anti-Semitism and racism are on the rise. This is unacceptable. Germany has taken action. Last year, my country put forth a whole set of new measures to combat anti-Semitism and hatred. Speaking at a celebration marking the 70th anniversary of the Central Council of Jews in Germany this September, the Chancellor made clear that criminal law is on the table. Where education is not enough, we'll fight anti-Semitism, racism, and xenophobia tooth and nail. They have no place in our societies. I am deeply grateful for the trust of and the close ties that we enjoy with the American Jewish community through Moment, through the Leo Baeck Institute, the AJC, and many, many others. It is our mission to relentlessly fight for the truth and to promote remembrance. And Nadine, I'd like to commend you and your entire team at Moment for your outstanding work and for the exceptional journalism you provide. When Elie Wiesel visited the Buchenwald concentration camp with President Obama and Chancellor Merkel in 2009, he remarked, "Memory must bring people together rather than set them apart. Memories," he said, "are here to sow not anger in our hearts, but on the contrary, a sense of solidarity." And it is in this spirit that I wholeheartedly thank you for awarding me this year's Human Rights Award. I'm truly honored. Together, we'll continue to remember and remain vigilant. Thank you.